Hey folks, happy Tuesday. We continue our July prayer calendar. It is Tuesday, July 5th, and the passage today is Mark chapter 8, verses 1 through 8. Mark 8, 1 through 8. So I invite you to open there, Matthew, Mark. Mark is the second book in the New Testament. As you're doing that, the question and prompt from today says, any leftovers from yesterday? Another way to be a steward of the earth is to not waste food. Producing food takes land, water, and farm equipment. So we continue thinking about caring for God's creation during this month of July, and food in particular is an important one. You know, I was just driving this week and driving through a part of, or last week, driving through a part of California. So there were dairy cows, and then a lot of land around where the dairy cows was growing food for those dairy cows. And just to see the amount of land and water it took just to care for those cows as they're producing dairy for us was a reminder to me about how many resources it takes to produce food. And so a way of caring for God's creation is not wasting food. Eat some leftovers. One of my favorite meals always is leftovers. If you know me well, you know that's true. All right, Mark chapter 8, verse 1. In those days when there was again a great crowd without anything to eat, he called his disciples and said to them, I have compassion for the crowd because they have been with me now for 3 days and have nothing to eat. If I send them away hungry to their homes, they will faint on the way, and some of them have come from a great distance. His disciples replied, how can one feed these people with bread here in the desert? He asked them, how many loaves do you have? They said 7. Then he ordered the crowd to sit down on the ground, and he took the 7 loaves, and after giving thanks, he broke them and gave them to the disciples to distribute, and they distributed them to the crowd. They also had a few small fish, and after blessing them, he ordered that those too should be distributed. They ate and were filled, and they took up the broken pieces left over, 7 baskets full. Now, 7 is kind of a perfect number in the old Hebrew and in that ancient world, right? 7 days of creation. It symbolized a fullness, that what they had prior to feeding was a fullness. In the eyes of God, a fullness. Is that a way of God saying that we have been given the resources we need in order to care for the world and the people around us? So we've been given the resources. They had the resources, and then when they share them and they're blessed by God, those resources magnified. So there's a perfect number of them left over. That there's enough for everybody. But notice there was enough for everybody when they shared them and when they dedicated them to God, which should make us think about how we can share our blessings and how we can take our lives and dedicate them to service of God, understanding that God can do more with our lives than we can do on our own. So caring for creation, a way in which a process of which we are recognizing all that God has already given us and the wise and courageous ways in which we might dedicate and use those blessings in service and in care of creation. God bless. Have a great day.